I'm Rick Lewis with Phenon Hoop Report. On today's segment of Coach's Corner, I have Coach Joel Battle, High Point Central. Welcome, Coach.
Hey, Coach. How are you? I'm doing good.
Thank you for being on today. Coach, you have an
Yeah.
unusual path to coaching high school basketball. You played basketball and you graduated from Kinston in 2003, but basketball wasn't your first love. Baseball was.
Yeah, it's funny, man. I was a baseball guy. Um, my family was real big into baseball. My dad was a baseball player growing up. Um, Played college baseball. Actually a self-taught baseball player. Didn't play until maybe his senior year in high school, and ended up playing college baseball at Fayetteville State back when they had a baseball program, and he won two national batting titles when he was playing. Um, and then that led him into coaching. And his brother was a big time baseball player. He played professional baseball in the Pittsburgh Pirates organization. He actually batted fourth in the lineup between Barry Bonds and Bobby Bonilla. So, growing up, baseball was my love. It's all I played. Starting with t-ball, I was always at the baseball games at high school and everything. So, baseball was truly what I wanted to do, and it just started that way, and it continued all the way up through college.
Well, growing up in Kinston, Kinston has quite a reputation for basketball as well, doesn't it?
Oh yeah. So me being 35 years old, I was born in '85. Um, Kinston basketball was a powerhouse before I was even born. Um, so then, with my dad coaching at the high school, my mom and dad were both educators in Kinston, so they knew everybody, all the parents, all the players. So I was always around, and we would go to the game, every home game, follow them on the road, and the gyms were filled up all the time to see Stackhouse and to see others, Chuck Jones and Charlie McNary and some of these guys. And it was just something that you don't see a lot. You don't see every day. And it made you want to be a part of that culture, play for Kinston High School. So, that's one of the things that makes Kinston so special, is that, kids grow up wanting to play for that school, and it becomes a competitive thing growing up, through rec ball, AAU ball. And all you want to do is be able to be good enough to play and be a part of that program. And, just to be a part of it is always, something special, and it's a blessing to be a part of that whole Kinston High family and culture.
Well, I would imagine though that you, since you were such a baseball fan growing up, playing basketball, with the reputation and the culture that Kinston had already set aside, I would imagine that had a lot to do with you wanting to play basketball for Kinston.
Yeah. So like I said, growing up, I was both, played basketball, baseball, football. I didn't really enjoy football as much. I didn't like the pounding and all that. So I was pretty good at basketball as well. Um, and funny thing happened, I was one of the better players in my age group in Kinston. So uh, eighth grade, ninth grade, 10th grade, I'm on the JV team, and I'm playing pretty well. I'm one of the leading scorers, the leading rebounder both years. But, when it got to my junior year, I didn't grow much. So I stayed at 6'3", and I turned and looked to my left, and my best friend, who was Jeremy Ingram, he was one of the better players in the country. He was 6'3" as well, and he was the point guard. Then I looked to my other side, and we've got a 6'5" shooting guard. Then I look behind me, and we got a 6'7" small forward that goes to East Carolina and leads Conference USA in scoring and rebounding. Then I look over here, and we got a 6'9" kid that I played with on JV, and outplayed him actually at times. And now he's 6'9", and he gets drafted by the Philadelphia 76ers after playing at Providence. And then we've got a 6'10" senior. And all these guys continued to grow and I didn't. So that's the point where I saw and I said, you know what? I'm happy to be here and I'm pretty good at baseball. So I'm just gonna focus on baseball and I'm gonna work hard to be a part of this. But I think my basketball thing is over with.
Well, after you graduated from Kinston in 2003, you got a baseball scholarship to play at North Carolina A&T. At what point in time did you decide you want to be a high school coach?
Oh wow. It didn't happen at that point. I can tell you that. Uh, like I said, I was a pretty good baseball player, and I really wanted to continue that. My first 2 years at A&T, I didn't play too much. Every now and then, as a pinch hitter, I would come in and had a couple of opportunities to make some plays and make some big time hits for the team. But junior, senior year, I started playing more. Started starting at DH, playing at first and third base, and getting the opportunity to play. And I remember one day my coach, Coach Keith Shoemake, who's now at Norfolk State, came and talked to me, said, I think you'd be a really good coach one day. And you don't pay attention to that type of thing, especially when you're involved in playing still and you're wanting to continue that. So it didn't cross my mind too much to do it. So, I'm fighting, working. Baseball is over with at A&T, and I continue to try a couple times to play professional ball, minor league, or independent league baseball. Things didn't really work out my way, and I just jumped into graduate school at that point, and it's still not on my mind in getting into coaching too much. And then all of a sudden, I remember when I'm at grad school, because I went to High Point University, I started thinking about coaching a little bit, and I was about to pursue being a graduate assistant while I was at High Point. I think Coach Scott Cherry was still there, and that's when I really first started thinking about coaching, and that's where that switch kind of changed for me a little bit.
Well, I know you said, when you went to North Carolina, you played baseball and you were there for 4 years. You then proceeded to go over to High Point University. You got a master's degree there. But along the way, you learned a little bit about coaching because your dad was the baseball coach at Kinston, correct?
Yes, he was the longest tenured coach at Kinston High School. And he coached the baseball team and program for 30 years. And to be a part of that, like I said, I grew up in the dugout with my dad. I remember days 2 years old, 3 years old. I'm in the dugout during the games with my dad and the high school team. Saturdays and Sundays when they're not practicing, I'm at the field with my dad, cleaning up the field and running around while he's cutting the grass and things like that. So, I've been around my dad as a coach my whole life, and he actually retired from coaching my senior year. So my senior year was his last year of coaching at the high school level, which was his 30th year. And we actually won the conference championship that year. We had a group of Division I baseball players and a couple guys on that team that got drafted as well. So, it was special to be a part of. And my dad was just the greatest guy. Unfortunately, he passed away a couple years ago. But, if anybody knows anything about Kinston, they know my dad, Ronnie Battle. And he's such a big time figure in Kinston, Hall of Fame in Kinston, Hall of Fame in the state for baseball. We just named the baseball complex at the high school in Kinston after him this past year, or last year. So he taught so many people, touched so many lives. And for him to be my dad and to learn a lot of those lessons on a daily basis and to be in the house was nothing other than special. And a lot of things I still carry today from what I learned.
Well, in 2008, you started getting into the coaching, and you coached JV baseball. You also coached JV basketball, and you worked your way from the ground up. Going at the JV level. What lessons did you learn? From your early years, just being at the ground level as a JV coach.
Well, I learned a lot because, as a first off, just jumping into coaching, you have to be humbled. And I learned that from my dad first. But when you get into coaching, you start to realize that you can't control everything. So I learned everything, like you said, from the ground up. I'm learning the upkeep of equipment, keeping the gym clean. Then you start getting into the school and taking care of grades and following kids' behavior and then the relationships you have to build with the kids to start, getting them to respect you and starting to understand where you're coming from and what you're talking about is important. So, coaching at the JV level gave me that initial burst of what it is you have to do to be successful in this. And I started with baseball, JV baseball, and JV basketball, and going from both sports, one back to back. It didn't give me time to rest, but it also was something that was good for me to keep me going, to keep me active out of school. And like I said, I learned a whole lot about the coaching profession at that point, just getting in and getting my foot in there.
Well, as you said, in college, you really didn't know what you were going to do, but I think playing for your dad, who was a great baseball coach, and you learned along the way, and then you got a chance to get into coaching at the JV level, and then 2 years later, in 2010, you went from being a JV coach to a varsity coach. What was the transition like for you at that point in time?
Well, it's funny. I was coaching with my cousin, my big cousin, Patrick Battle, and that's kind of where I mentioned earlier I was at High Point and thinking about doing the graduate assistant route to start coaching, but I didn't do that and pursue that because my cousin had just gotten the JV basketball job at High Point Central, and he asked me to help him out. So that's where I initially got started and pulled into coaching. And in 2010, he got the varsity job. So when he got the varsity position, he asked me to move up with him, and of course, I was happy to do that. And that was my first year that I got a teaching job as well, so, at the school. So it only made sense to be I was just able to work with him, and that was special to be able to work with my cousin who I hadn't mentioned yet, but I looked up to him just like my dad. He played college baseball, college football at North Carolina A&T, and I was getting a chance to coach with him, and it was just great, along with another cousin of mine who actually helped us as well. So it was kind of like a family thing, and us three working together on that varsity team for his first 2-3 years was so fun. It was special, and we go from uh, practice and games to going to the house and hanging out and eating at the restaurants just like we did when we were little kids. So it was a great opportunity for all of us to be together, along with growing and getting started in coaching as well.
Well, later on, you were able to coach in the North Carolina Pro Am, and also being from Kinston, and of course, that's where Jerry Stackhouse is from. You were able to get involved with Stackhouse Elite. How did your experience with coaching at the North Carolina Pro Am and also with Stackhouse Elite prepare you for the next step that you're going to take?
That era of my time when it came to coaching was probably my best, the most fun I've had. If anybody knows anything about the North Carolina Pro-Am, it occurred in Durham, and they played it at North Carolina Central. And I was approached by a family friend. He actually played baseball for my dad, and he's Jerry's best friend, one of Stackhouse's best friends. And he approached me about coaching in the pro-am. And I was like, sure, I guess. And I remember going to one of the games when it first got started, and I was just in awe of what was going on. The gyms were filled up every night. And not only were the gyms filled up, but you had basketball players from all walks of everywhere. And Durham, is right there in the center of Tobacco Road with NC State, Duke, and Carolina. And all these guys are playing in this program. So I'm like, man, this is crazy. And then you look up and then you see a lot of the pro guys that are walking in the gym. You see Raymond Felton playing, and Rasheed Wallace and Josh Powell from NC State was playing with the Lakers at the time, and a bunch of other guys. And then, I was like, all right, let's do it. I get out there, and, I'm young at the time. I don't really know what to think. I'm like, I'm not Coach K. I'm not Roy Williams. Why would these guys listen to me? It's a summer league. And I remember, I think the best thing that ever happened was Rasheed Wallace was on my team, along with a couple other guys. And I remember it was maybe the second game, and we called a timeout, and I said something. I kind of drew up something, just talking it out to the guys. And I remember Rasheed turned and looked at me. He's like, Coach, that's a good idea. I like what you're talking about. We need to do that. And it was like, from that moment on, all the guys listened to me. All the guys respected me from everything that we were talking about. And I was like, man, this is crazy, because it's just a summer league. These guys don't have to do anything that we're talking about. They could just go out there and do whatever they want. So that was so fun for me to be able to be a part of that. And then that led to me getting that opportunity with Stackhouse Elite, and being with them for 3 summers. I'm in the gym with Jerry, seeing practices, working with him on ideas, watching film, breaking things down. Took a couple trips with him, and to learn from him who at the time was just starting the coaching idea for himself, but all of his ideas and how passionate he was about coaching and helping these kids get better, it was an invaluable lesson to me. And I took a lot of that into what I do today. So, like I said, those few years was a great time for me to get some experience and learn a few things on my own, and help me out into what I'm trying to do today.
Well, in 2015, you became the head coach at High Point Central. And also in 2017 and 2019, you were named Coach of the Year. What did those honors mean to you?
Those were special for me, especially because, the route that I've taken from being in baseball so much and then jumping into basketball without a clue in the world that I would be a basketball coach. And just getting that varsity job as a head coach, it was the world to me. I was around, obviously, but to get that position for myself, I was able to look back and reflect on some things, and start my own ideas in my program. And to win those Coach of the Year awards in the conference those 2 years, especially the first one, it meant a lot, because those votes come from the coaches in the conference,
On
and
your peers.
to get to get that respect from those guys, your peers, Coach Revis at Northwest, and some of these other guys that's been around coaching for a long time, and for them to give you some credit, especially me being as young as I was, and starting to get into it, that meant a lot to me, and helped me realize that, I'm doing the right thing. I'm doing some good things for these young guys, and for the program, and for High Point. So, it was special. And, I look back on them and I'm excited about those. But I'm looking to the future as well. And at the end of the day, those are great. I'm not really into it for myself, obviously, but it does feel good to be recognized sometimes by others for your contributions and what your hard work is.
Well, Coach, let's be honest. It's not easy being a coach at High Point Central. I mean, it's just tough coaching in the city of High Point. What's some of the biggest challenges you face at High Point Central?
Well, it's funny. High Point, I didn't know much about High Point, honestly. I used to come to Greensboro a lot when I was younger for baseball tournaments. Um, but I didn't know much about High Point. I heard about it before. Um, so when I came up here for school in Greensboro, started to find out a little bit more about High Point. But my freshman year in high school was actually the year that Andrews won the state championship in basketball. And they beat us, Kinston High School, in the state championship. So the funny thing is, since I was a freshman in high school, I've known about High Point Andrews, and I've never really liked them, because they beat us in the state championship. So I've always had something about that thing. And then I get a chance to come to High Point Central to help my cousin, and I didn't realize what I was stepping into. I didn't realize it was a rivalry there until I got there, and I realized, oh, that's who High Point Central and Andrews, that's how it works, So just being here in the city for the last 8-10 years, I've learned a whole lot. And High Point is different. It's a smaller city. It's got big money in it, but it's also got some really low income areas in it as well. And if you've ever been to High Point Central, to our school sits right in the middle of the city. And on one side of the school, you've got multi-million-dollar houses. I mean, right there on the other side of the street facing the school. And then on the back side of the school, you've got a bunch of low-income housing. So our school sits in a situation where we get the high income and the low income, and they all come together. There's not much middle class in High Point. A lot of the middle class starts to spread out a little bit. They start to go towards the suburbs a little bit, as we say. So High Point is a very different situation. Like I said, we got a lot of low income students, and because of that, we have a lot of challenges when it comes to, just sometimes even just feeding the guys, making sure we get food for the guys, making sure they've got the right equipment, trying to get shoes and clothes and gear and all of that stuff for these guys. So it's a challenge when it comes to that, but it's so fun. I love being in the city. I love being around because it's so diverse, and it gives us a chance to see everybody from each race, from each economic status, from everywhere you can find. So I love being there, but it is a challenge. It can be a challenge at times, but it's something that, we work with, and it's something that we're going to continue to thrive with as well.
Well, Coach, you have a love and passion for the game and also for coaching. In your young career, what's been the biggest enjoyment you've experienced so far?
Just seeing the guys' faces, just being around the guys, being around these young men. So many stories of, the first time you meet a kid at school as a freshman, or you meet them in the 8th grade or something like that, to when they finally get to graduate and cross that stage, and they're the first one in their family to graduate high school, or they're the first one in their family to go to college, or, at this point I've been around long enough where a lot of the guys that I first started coaching are, they're graduated and they're starting grad school, and they've got families, and they've got these really good jobs across the country. And, it's just a joy to see these guys, these young men grow up, and you look back on all these situations when, You know, they're walking around the school and they're a little bit of a knucklehead, you know. But then you get to that final stage or these stages now, and you see how much they've grown, how much they've learned, how much they've matured. And then, you know, just the basketball part. The basketball part is so fun to get in the gym with these guys and once again see the growth from eighth, ninth grade up to those senior years of how much better they got, how much stronger they got. And then, you know, in the last 4 or 5 years, I've had 7 kids signed to go play college basketball. And that's something I'm very proud about as well, because once again, I've got kids that I never even thought from the beginning that they were college basketball players, but their work ethic, their grind, getting in the gym with us every day, they're wanting to learn and be better, has got those guys to be where they want to be. And you know, I'm just so proud of being a part of that, small piece of that. And I give all these guys the credit for becoming those young men on the basketball court and in life as well.
Coach, in the 5 years you've been at High Point Central, what lessons do you want your players to learn from you as a coach?
Um, just a lot of lessons I learned from my dad. A lot of lessons I've learned from other coaches that have coached me. Coach Cliff Godwin was one of my baseball coaches. He was my dad's assistant my senior year. He's the current head coach at East Carolina University for baseball. Coach at Westover High School, who was one of my coaches. Coach Wells Gulledge, who's at Ashley High School. I learned so many things from those guys, and I want to carry on and bring those things to these guys. And, you know, once again, I just want them to learn how to be young men. I want them to learn how to be quality people. I want them to learn respect, how to respect others, how to work hard, how to be good teammates, and just be a part of something special. You know, be a part of something bigger than yourself, and just giving them all the lessons that they can possibly take into life is what I'm truly here for. Because, you know, at the end of the day, we can't play basketball and baseball and these sports forever. We want to. We wish we could. We think we can at the older ages as we get. We think we can still do it. But, you know, there's a time where you have to do something different. And I want them to be able to take these lessons and be able to work in the world, and whether it be in basketball, whether it be in baseball. You know, I tell them all the time, you know, your days of playing might end soon, but you can still work with basketball. You can do things like, you know, Rick Lewis and those types of things. You know, you can work for the Charlotte Hornets, whatever it is. It doesn't have to end. So just being a quality young man and learning from all the situations is what I'm about. You know, whether it's you make it to the NBA or not, let's have some fun, let's learn, let's work hard, and everything will take place with that respect.
Well, Coach, the one thing I've noticed with you is I've never heard you complain. I know it's a difficult situation being at the public school sector, especially at a school like High Point Central. Nothing against High Point Central, but you don't have a bevy of talent coming through the ranks. But you've been able, in a short period of time, in your 5 years, you've had 7 players go play collegiately. The thing that I see most about you, Coach, is you want to make a difference in young men's lives. And what I see is from you, Coach, is you're a great role model for the players that play for you at High Point Central.
Well, I appreciate that, and like I said, that's kind of what I want to be. You know, I look around Greensboro, High Point, these other areas, and you see these programs that do a lot of winning, and they get the really good, talented ball players and things, and that's great. You know, every now and then we'll get one. We've had a couple in the past that kind of played with us, but you know, I'm all about working hard
Right.
and being as good as you can be. And you know, like I said, it's no complaining. It's no complaining about being here at High Point, you know.
And I
High
think,
Point
Coach,
Central is a great place.
yeah, and I think that's the thing that's impressed me most about you. Like, you know what, you haven't had a an overabundance of talent to come through, but that's never affected who you are as a person or as a coach. You know, you want to coach those guys, you want to coach them up, you want to make a difference. And like you said before, you know, when they finished their playing career at High Point Central, you know, you want to basically use that 4 years at High Point Central to help prepare them in the game of life.
Yes, sir. That's exactly it. Now, you know, if you ask me if I wanted to coach a couple of these big time guys, of course, yeah, send them on. Like that would be so fun. Um, but at the end of the day, you know, it's high school basketball, and
Right.
in my situation, you know, I can't recruit, so whatever comes through my doors is what I'm coaching, and that's what I'm fine with. You know, this past season wasn't a great year. We only won one basketball game, but you can't. When you walked into my gym on the last day of the season and you saw those kids, you can never tell we only won one basketball game. Those guys came to work every day. They worked as hard as they could every day. You know, we had a lot of inexperience, so we weren't expected to win a lot of games at all. But what we did was we worked hard. And if you ask anybody that played against us as the season went on, we got so much better. The kids started competing a lot better. And you had to actually play to beat us. But, you know, like I said, I'm here to have a good time, to work with these kids, to teach them. And, you know, it's a basketball game. As much as I'm competitive and want to win, it's only two things that can happen in a game. You either win or you lose. And somebody's got to be on either side of that. So, you know, there's no pressure in that. You just go after it. You play what you can do and give all you got. And wherever it falls, it falls.
Well, Coach, I want to say thank you for coming on Coach's Corner today. And I mean this sincerely. You're what's great about coaching.
I appreciate it, Coach. And I was so excited to see this and have an opportunity to do this and, you know, just to share my story and talk about what we do in High Point in general. So I appreciate the opportunity.
Well, I think your story was one that needed to be told. So often, you know, we always want to talk about the people who's had the most success as far as wins and losses, but it goes much deeper than wins and losses. And as you well stated, it's about coaching the game of life and making an impact on these young men. And as I said before, you're a tremendous role model, and High Point Central is very lucky to have you as their coach. And I just want to say thank you.
Thank you, Coach. Thank you.
Uh huh. Uh huh.